welcome. All right, let's go. Here goes. Nehemiah chapter 2. And it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Xerxes, when wine was before him, that I took the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had never been sad in his presence before. Therefore the king said to me, why is your face sad, since you are not sick? This is nothing but sorrow of the heart. So I became dreadfully afraid, and I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city, the place of my father's tombs, lies waste, and its gates are burned with fire? Then the king said to me, what do you request? So I prayed to the God of heaven, and then I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. Then the king said to me, the queen also sitting beside him, how long will your journey be? And when will you return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time, or I gave him a time. Furthermore, I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me for the governors of the region beyond the river, that they may, or that they must permit me to pass through till I come to Judah. And the letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he must give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, which pertains to the temple, for the city wall, and for the house that I will occupy. And the king granted them to me according to the good hand of my God upon me. Then I went to the governors in the region beyond the river and gave them the king's letter. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Amorite official heard of it, they were deeply disturbed that a man had come to seek the well-being of the children of Israel. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I rose in the night, and a few men with me. I told no one what God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor was there any animal with me except the one which I rode. And I went out by night through the valley gate to the serpent well and to the refuse gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem which were broken down, and its gates which were burned with fire. Then I went to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal to pass under me. So I went up So I went up in the night by the valley and viewed the wall. Then I turned back and entered the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I had done. I had not told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or others who did work. Then I said to them, you see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies in waste, and its gates are burned. Come, and let us build the walls of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. Verse 18, and I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me, and also of the king's words that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us arise and build. Then they set their hands to do this good work. And the word of the Lord is blessed. I don't know about you, but I get so much energy just reading the word of God. I feel like I could just run around. Just reading it brings the fire, brings the excitement, brings the encouragement. We have only read a portion of the chapter 2. We have not even read it in its entirety, just a few more verses to go. But I am so strengthened by what I've read, in line with your theme let the builders arise. There is not a call for a builder unless there is something to be built. When you call for a builder, it means that something is broken or something needs to be established. Now, many times it is easy, and I've said this before a number of times that I've preached from Nehemiah, that whenever we want to build something for the first time, there's a lot of energy and adrenaline and so forth, because there is an excitement about what is about to be established, what you're about to occupy. However, when what you have built have been destroyed, perhaps by fire or a storm or something, in order to rebuild, you're going to have to dig a little deeper. Can we agree on that? It is not as easy to rebuild versus when you're building for the first time. When you're building for the first time, you're excited about building. When the Lord told David to build that he would be instrumental in the building of the temple, David wanted to build the temple. David's heart was to build the temple. David's like, this is what I do. This is a heart of worship. But God says, listen, David, your hands are too bloody and you can't build it. But what I want you to do is to prepare for that which is to go up. And so we see Solomon coming in and Solomon building the temple. And we see that the children of Israel was excited. And when they dedicated the temple, a chapter after chapters are dedicated to the dedication of the temple, right? For that which was built, there was a great excitement about it. People were putting in their resources. The thing that had been promised, it was now come to pass, and everybody was on fire and ready to build. But it's not so easy in the position that Nehemiah finds himself in. The temple had destroyed, the walls had been destroyed, the walls of Jerusalem had been destroyed. The people were held captive, and some had returned. But when they returned, what they left was broken down. What they left was destroyed. What they left, they came back to, they saw ruins. And it's hard to build from ruins, Pastor, because first you've got to clean out the stuff. You got to clean out the rubbish. I was preaching today and I was talking about making room for God, making room for the oil. And I was saying that there are times that we want more and we add more, but we haven't cleaned out the rubbish. We haven't cleaned out the stuff that can prevent us from building. And so these people had come back from exile. Some had come back. Some had been born in exile. Very few had come back. If you go a few chapters, somebody asked, who remembers the house in its first glory? And how do you see it now? Right? What they were doing was trying to get the people back into the place and a mindset to build. Many of us are at different levels in our lives of experiencing brokenness in some shape or form. And it's hard to come back. Some of us have been traumatized. Nowadays, you hear everybody talking about the trauma of their youth, the trauma of their childhood, the trauma of a relationship. People are broken in so many different ways. For some of us, we have been broken in our finances, and we had to start from scratch and build again. For others, it's emotional brokenness, and we have to learn to build again. Perhaps build without a loved one that we had, that once were with us, that we created great memories. We have feelings of loss, and they are very personal, and only you know the significance of the loss that you have faced and that you're experiencing. strong sensations and feeling of grief, perhaps losing a partner in life or a close friend, something that causes us to have to come back from a place of brokenness. And we recognize that when we have been broken, it is not so easy to come back, because you're left with feelings, the weight, the pressure. And so I want you to understand what Nehemiah was sensing. Nehemiah was in a great place. He was in the king's house. Nehemiah had a great and a wonderful job. He was the cupbearer for the king. Nehemiah was actually in a really good place. But nonetheless, Nehemiah remembered where he was from. Nehemiah remembered the house in its glory. Nehemiah remembered the great city. And now, as he remembers the city that once was, and he began to inquire about it, he heard that the city was in ruins. He heard that the city was broken down. He heard that the esteemed glory of the place was now in ruins. Some of the things that we have faced in life, some of the things that we have gone through, some of the trauma that we have endured have left us in the debris of ruins. It has left us broken. What we see what the remnant of what once was. And our soul is somehow discouraged, not thinking that we can get to that place again. Sometimes we find that we're unable to find the strength. We don't know where to begin. We don't know how to begin. How am I going to come back from this place? And so when Nehemiah learned that Jerusalem was in waste and that the gates had been destroyed, the gates, that is the defense of any city, was now burnt. And so it had access, anybody and anything had access to the city. The people returned from exile, and now they were living among the ashes. The place that was once beautiful, the place that was an attraction, the place that was dedicated to God, this place was now laid in waste. It was broken down. And so we see Nehemiah going before the king. His heart was heavy. The king knew that Nehemiah was not physically sick. So he said, this problem must be a problem of the heart. My God, you can imagine how he was wearing. We would say in today's day that he was wearing his emotions on his sleeves. The king could tell that something was wrong. Nehemiah wasn't laughing like how he used to laugh. He wasn't smiling like how he used to smile. Why? Because the city that he loved. Listen, he described it as the home of his father's tombs. It says the place of my father's tombs. Now, I don't know about you, but not many of us go back to the tomb. But he looked at the city, and he didn't even call it a city. He called it the place of my father's tombs. There was something that was stirring on the inside of us. What I noticed about Nehemiah before he even got to the city, he began to look at, in his mind's eye, the broken down towers. He began to carefully study what was wrong. Sometimes we've got to study what is wrong. What is wrong? Where's the place that is broken? Where are those walls in our lives or gates that have been burnt? We've been burnt by people, been burnt by jobs, been burnt by life. And so we find ourselves trapped in a hurting place. We find ourselves trapped in a cycle. And sometimes we don't even know how to ask for help. As I was sharing with the congregation this morning, we were looking in 2 Kings, and we were looking at the woman whose creditors were coming for her son, and she cried out to Elisha, and Elisha asked her, what do you have in your house? This woman had enough sense to say, listen, I'm not going to let them take my son. I'm going to ask for help. And so we find Nehemiah in front of the king. He hadn't approached the king to ask for help, but the king recognized that something was wrong. He recognized that he was in distress. The citizens, the leaders of Jerusalem, they were in distress. They were now exiled. They were discombobulated, right? They were pushed out. They were taken exile. And know that it was time for release, because guess what? The word of God said that they would have been in exile for a certain time, but that there would be a time that they would return. And this was the time of the return. This is the time that they had come back, but now they had to put their hands or their shoulders to the wheel. They had to get dirty. We find Nehemiah in a beautiful place in the king's palace, but nonetheless, his heart was in Jerusalem. His heart was there. His heart was in that city. And so when the king asked him, what can I do? I love how the king approached him and says, Nehemiah, what can we do? And before Nehemiah could answer, the Bible says that Nehemiah prayed unto God. Verse 4, he says, so I prayed to the God of heaven. Mighty God, in my distress, I cried out unto the Lord, and he heard me. Hallelujah. And he answered me. He prayed unto God. Listen, you can cry out to God in the midst of the ruins. You don't have to fix it. Just cry out to God. Cry out to God over the mess. Cry out to God, and he will hear you. Oftentimes I hear when we invite unsaved to church, they would say, I have to fix up first. I have to get rid of some stuff. I have to do some stuff. But what I've come to tell us tonight is God just wants you just as you are. Because he's building a testimony out of you. He's writing a new book, a new chapter rather to your book. He's adding to the pages of your story. And because your life is in ruin, it is not the end. It is only an opportunity for God to step in. And so Nehemiah cried out unto God. He said, so I prayed to the God of heaven. He might have been in a strange place, but he still knew the God of heaven. He still knew who his daddy was. He still knew that he belonged to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He still knew that even though he was exiled, even though he was put out, my God had been faithful to his word. And he said, so I pray to the God of heaven. The first thing that Nehemiah did was understand who he was. He understand who God was and how instrumental God is. Listen, Nehemiah may not even know what he wanted to do, but when you pray and when you talk to God, he will talk back to you. And so when he prayed to the God of heaven, God gave him the answer, the response that he was to give to the king. He said, if I find favor in your sight, send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may build it. I love Nehemiah's passion. Nehemiah is like, my father's tombs are buried there, but I'm okay being there because I want to rebuild it. Because when God comes into the place, when God comes into a situation, he will make alive again. So he says, send me to Judah, send me to the house of praise, send me to the place that I once knew. That's a place that I want to go back to. The Bible tells us that we ought to search for the old path, and when we find it, we ought to walk therein. Walk therein, search for what that old path is and find it. And when we find it, we must walk in it. Nehemiah knew exactly what he wants, and the king granted unto him his request. He went on to say, furthermore, I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me for the governors of the regions beyond the river, that they must permit me to pass through till I come. Listen, Nehemiah put in his visa application. He said, listen, I'm not about to trespass on anybody's territory. I'm not looking for a war. I'm not looking for a fight. Listen, Nehemiah was focused. His intention was to build. Sometimes we're on our way to building, and there's some people that gets in our way, some people that want to bust a fight with us, but we cannot afford to be distracted. because we are called to build. Nehemiah's whole purpose was to build. Nehemiah said, listen, I'm going to build the walls. That's my purpose. Everybody else coming after me, Ezra, all of those people, they're coming and they're going to build a spiritual man back. But my call, my lane is to build the walls, to build and reestablish the gate. And so I'm not picking a fight. He said, King, just give me the visa. Give me the visa so I can get through to where I need to go. He said, give me the permit. All he was looking for was the permit. He was looking for the permit. He was ready to build again. To build again takes determination and it takes courage. You see, you cannot be focused on the distress that you are in, because if you're focused on the distress, you won't move. You won't go anywhere. You have to focus on the hope that you have in God. It is time to build again. And so the cry has gone out. Nehemiah puts in his request. Give me the visa. Give me the permit. As a matter of fact, not only that, don't only give me the visa. Don't only give me the permit, but give me the resources that I need in order to build. I need the resources. I need the resources. God, if you're going to send me to build, give me the equipment, give me the resources. I need the resources to build. He wasn't bashful about asking the king because he knew who he was standing before. He had already prayed to God and he had already asked for favor. Listen, the word tells us that we get not because we ask not. Because we're afraid of asking. And I used to be like that at one time. And even if I want to be truthful, sometimes it's a little hard for me. And I got to get beyond the pride. I've got to get beyond the place. I have a friend, listen, she will ask for anything at the drop of a dime. Sometimes I say, my God, where you get this kind of braveness from? She said, listen, but I need it. So I'm going to ask for it. All you can do is say no. You know, so to build, we have to have determination. We have to have courage. It takes courage to build. It takes courage. When I'm looking at the builders building, the carpenters and the building, and they're going up on the different levels and the different heights, and I'm looking at the where they're located and the things that they have. It takes courage. Building is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the faint of heart. You're going to have courage to build because you're going to come against some opposition. If you're going to build, there are some days that it's going to snow. I remember just a few months ago, our roof was in disrepair and needed to be changed. The shingles on the roof needed to be changed and animals had moved into the roof. So at night when we lay down, we hear things happening in our roof. And I'm looking up to say, Lord, please don't let them break down through and come down. Right, because the roof was in need of repair. And as I'm sitting there every day, we're calling, and the man would say to me, he would say, we're waiting for a good weather. Michelle, we're waiting for a good weather. You're next on the list. And every day I call him, I said, you guys don't come. You guys are going to let the animals move in down here on us. And he said, I've got to wait for the right weather. But one day the right weather came and he was able to come and put on back the roof and reestablish the roof. So there are times that when you're called to build, you're going to experience some storms. Somebody say storms. You're going to experience some storms. You're going to get some people that have their own opinion about what you should build and if you should build and should you build and don't build. Right? You're gonna get some unwanted feedback. And as well, you're gonna get some good criticism and you're gonna get some good tools to help you with the build. Nehemiah was passionate. Nehemiah, when Sanballat and Tobias came to him, he said, listen, I'm doing a good work. I can't come down to reason and argue with you. It takes determination. We can't be easily distracted when we're attempting to build something. We can't be easily distracted. We must be focused on our assignment. Our assignment is important. Let the builders arise. Let the builders arise from wherever they are in the city. And so Nehemiah has left the king's house, and now he's come into Judah. He's come to the place of his father's tomb, and he begins to investigate. He begins to look around. He looks at the residue of what's left. He looks at the people who are now living among the ashes. And I don't know about you, but it looks bad. It looks grim. Where do you start? Where do you start? Where do you start? Have anybody been through a hurricane? Where do you start? Have you been through a flood? Where do you start? Have you been through a move? Where do you start? He starts. And Haggai picks it up when he asks the question, who is left among you who saw the house in her first glory? And how do you see it now? He makes an encouragement. He said, yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, said the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Jodas, this high priest. There is let me tell you, when builders are building, you have to have the ability to inspire. Let me talk to the leaders that are on the line. You have to have the ability to inspire. And this is what we find Nehemiah doing. Nehemiah goes and he looks at the place. He looks at the brokenness. He inspects it. So he knows exactly what he's working with. He knows exactly the conditions that he's dealing with. Somebody didn't have to tell him. After he heard, he went for himself, and he had to face the brave truth. He had to face the disarray. But I believe that it stirred his passion. You see, as a builder, you have to allow your passion to build to come forth. When he looked and he saw the condition, he didn't throw up his hands and walked away. He didn't throw up his hands and say, you know what, this is a waste of time. When he saw the condition, he became more passionate. When he saw the condition of the city, he became more focused on his assignment. When he saw the condition of the place, he recognized how important his assignment to build is. Many of us, we don't understand the importance of our assignment. So it's easy for us, Pastor, to walk away. It's easy for us to throw up our hands and say, let somebody else do it. But the call is for the builders to arise. And sometimes you're going to have to rise by yourself. And when you rise by yourself, somebody else will follow. But you're going to have the faith to stand up and says, listen, I'm going to build. I know this is broken, but I'm going to build. I know it's a mess, but I'm going to build. Passion. Builders must be passionate because the structure they build will house lives. The structure that you build will carry lives. The structure that you build will support lives. It is important that we're passionate, we don't just allow, oh, whatever, nobody's going to see it. You know what? The pastor is not here. The supervisor is not here. I'm just going to not put in that screw. I'm just going to leave that plank bare. No. Somebody that is passionate, recognize that what I'm building, it's going to house people. What I'm building is going to carry people. What I'm building, it's going to support people. What I'm building, lives are dependent on it. Lives, generation after generation is dependent on my position, on what I'm building. Don't count it for nothing. Don't count it for nothing. You are called to build. Nehemiah could have stayed in King Xerxes' house and continued to be the cupbearer until the day he died. But no, he was passionate. He says, listen, I'm going to build again. I'm going to inspect it. I recognize that the condition is a mess. I understand where it is, but I am going to build. And so he poses that beautiful question, come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem. You see the distress, you see the waste, you see that the gates are burned with fire. The problem with us as Christians is that sometimes we have something over our eyes. Our eyes are clouded over. We don't care about the community. We don't care about the condition. It is just for me and my house. But how many know that if you don't care about your community, before long, your house is affected. Your house price is affected.
Come on now.
You can't sell your house if you don't care about the community. We can't have blinders over our eyes. He said, you see, verse 17, you see the distress that we are in. Can you see it? Jerusalem, she lies in waste. The community lies in waste. Can the builders arise in the nation? Can the builders arise in the street? Can the builders arise in our communities? Can the builders arise? We're calling for the builders to arise. Inspect the condition. Inspect the condition of the atmosphere that you're in. Inspect the condition of your community. Inspect the condition of your church. What was once great, is it now lying in waste? Is there a position that was empty? Someone had served in it faithfully for years, and now they have gone to be with the Lord, or they have moved on, but there is nobody to take the space. There's nobody to build. You see, the foundation was already laid. And so Nehemiah says, come from far, come from near, come, let us build, let us build, let us build, let us build. It is important that we understand that we must build. A good builder builds with good materials. We've got to build. The material matters. Can I say that again? The material that you're building with, it matters. When he asked for the timber, he says in verse 8, he said that he must give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, which pertains to the temple, for the city wall, and for the house that I will occupy. And he said the king granted unto him. And so he received the things that he needed, the resources that he needed in order to build. God will give you the resources. God will give you the resources. A good builder builds with quality material. So as we're making the call, let the builders arise, we're saying we're going to build with quality. We're going to build with faith. We're going to build with hope. We're going to build with love. John 13 tells us, this new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love each other. And by this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Pastor, of all the things, the money that we could give, the riches that he said, love. Can we build on love? Good quality love. Good quality love. Love that is not, I'm loving you from a distance. Love that no matters what, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you till you feel it. I'm going to love it till it infiltrates your heart. I'm going to love you. And you're going to try to frustrate my purpose. But the Bible says where sin abounds, grace much more abounds. I'm going to learn to love you even more. You're going to resist the love, but I'm going to love you because what? I'm building this city on love. I'm a builder and I've been called to arise. And so I'm going to build my community that is broken. I'm going to build with love. The church needs love. The nation needs love. A lot of times people are in this problem they're in because they haven't been loved. And they're searching for love in all the wrong places. The Bible says a friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born out of adversity. Can you imagine? A brother is born out of adversity. Let me just let that soak for a minute. A brother is born out of adversity, not pleasantry, not in the good times, not when all is going well. Doesn't look like Christmas, but adversity. A brother is born out of adversity. So it tells me that I've got to build with love. The more adversity, it means there are more sons to be born. There are more daughters that are going to be born. I'm building. I'm going to build. I'm going to build this church. I'm going to build this church. I'm going to build the kingdom, and I'm going to build it on love. Let this be the house of love. Let it be the place of love. If nothing else, if you don't have money, if you don't have riches, if you have love, it conquers. Build on love, good quality love. Love till it hurts. You know, it was the love that Nehemiah had for his people. You see, when Nehemiah thought about the fact that his people had come back to the city and that the city had no defense, it wasn't just because he just loved the walls of Jerusalem because they were beautiful. The walls of Jerusalem serve to cover the people. If nobody had come back, the walls could have lied in waste. It probably wouldn't have bothered him as much. But the exiles had returned, and they had returned to nothing. A brother is born out of adversity. And Nehemiah probably didn't know that he loved his people this much until adversity set in, and he realized that I'm sitting in the king's house, but my people lie in a place of ashes. And so love pulled him up. Love turned him upside down. I love to say this line. Tina Turner says, what's love got to do with it? And I stand to say that love has everything to do with it. Everything. Let the builders arise. Let the builders arise. Let the builders arise. Lives are dependent on the structure that you are building. Lives are dependent on it. It's going to take some patience. The Bible says love is patient and love is kind. You're going to have to build on 1 Corinthians 13. You're going to have to build with some good quality material of love, tangible love. Listen, when Nehemiah said, come, let us build the walls of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach, that we may no longer be an embarrassment, that we may no longer be the gossip of the town, that we may no longer be the reproach of the nations, that the other kings don't have to look down on us and feel sorry for us. He said, come, let us build. Come. Christmas time in Jamaica, they used to sing a song and they said, run, come quick. He said, come and build so that the wall of Jerusalem, so that we may no longer be a reproach. Can you imagine everybody talking about Jerusalem? Them same people that had some great prophets and kings, those said same people, look at them, the same people that boast that their God is God of all gods. Those said people that God parted the Red Sea and drowned Pharaoh's army in. Those said people, look at them now. They were the talk. They were the talk. Nations were looking. Maybe some felt sorry for them. But whatever the condition is, Nehemiah was stirred by the love he had for God, the love he had for his people, the love that he had for his city. And even in the ruins, even in the mess, he said, come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem. Now the bricklayer can say to the drywall, man, don't come and don't show up to work. Everybody had their portion. Everybody had their little spot of ground to build on. Some may not have been qualified, but whatsoever they found their hands to do, they did it. Verse 18, he said, and I told them of the hand of my God, which had been good upon me. Watch this. And also of the king's words that he had spoken unto me. He now begins to encourage them. Thank you. Somebody drop in the word in the chat. Yes, teamwork. He begins to encourage them. He says that God has been good to me. I'm standing in a mess, and I'm able to say that God has been good. I'm standing in ruins, and I'm able to say God has been good. I'm standing in the ashes, but I'm still able to say that God has been good. I'm standing among the tombs, but I'm still able to say that God has been good. Nehemiah says, God has been good. Nehemiah, you're in exile. Nehemiah said, but God has been good. Nehemiah, you're in a strange land, but God has been good. You're in a strange house, but God has been good. God has been good. He's been good. He's been so very good. You don't understand how good he is. I was in a strange place. I was before a strange king, but I prayed unto God, and God gave me the favor, and he gave me the grace, and he gave me the wit, and he gave me the courage to ask of the king. Nehemiah begins to testify, and he has not laid a brick on another brick as yet. He begins to testify, and he hasn't hung any of the timber on the wall. He begins to testify, and nothing. He's still standing in the ruins, but he's saying, God has been good to me. God has been good to me. Your testimony will encourage somebody. Your testimony will lift somebody up. God has been good to me. He said, God has been good to me. And even the king, the favor that I've had with the king, the words that he spoke to me, he began to inspire them. He said 2 lines. Somebody, 2 lines. 2 lines. Remember, up until this point, he was walking and he was just inspecting the gate. He wasn't telling anybody what his plans were. He wasn't giving them a blueprint. He had not gone into a conference with them. He just began to inspect the city. Inspect the walls, inspect the ruins. People must have wondered, who is this that have come? He probably walked with with some presence. And they recognize that this is someone. Someone had come in to the place that had now been forgotten. Someone had come in and brought life. I don't know about you, but I remember when I was growing up in Jamaica and somebody came from foreign, it was big news. It was big. When my auntie came, come on, you remember that, Pastor? When somebody was coming from America or coming from England, it was a big thing. You see the car, we knew every car that was on our street.
High expectations.
High expectations. But when a new car came on the block, we know. High expectation. So imagine that Nehemiah has come. He has come in. The nobles didn't know what was happening. He had not told the Jews. He had not told the priests. He had not told the officials. He had not told anybody of anything. He was just inspecting. He was just walking around. And he made the call, come, let us build. He gave his testimony. God has been good to me. God has been good to me. And I don't know about you, but I get excited when I read verse 18. I just get excited. I get excited after he gives his testimony. I get excited about the response. The response is, find it if you're reading it. They said, let us rise up and build. The power of inspiration. The power of inspiration. He gets up, he testifies, and they said, and he makes the challenge to them, come, let us build. And they respond is yes, come, let us arise and build. I want to ask us tonight to the question that have been posed, let the builders arise. The statement rather that has been posed. What is your response? What is your response? What is your response? What is your response going to be? Are you going to use excuses and says, well, if you only knew what I have to put up with, if you only know what I had to go through, if you only know what I have to bear. What is your response to building? What is your response to the challenge that has been set out? Build. And some of us, we have to start right where we're at. We can't even go build somebody else, because right where we're at, we need to get the determination that we're going to arise and build. I'm going to leave the trauma. Trauma will not be my label. Can I say that again? Trauma will not be my label.